Hi everyone, welcome back, or more likely, welcome to the channel. My name is Bryony and I'm one half of the Indecisive Readers. If you're watching this, and I assume you are, I've decided to return to BookTube. I say this like I was here for a while, but the reality is I was here for about 2 weeks. We just never quite got into the swing of posting and filming, and it's something I would like to do now, so before I actually go into the video, I'm just going to discuss my reasons for returning with you. The first is, I don't think I'm going to put a lot of pressure on Sam this time. Last time we did this channel was meant to be his baby and the blog was meant to be mine. This meant that I would film the video and cut out most of my babbling, but I would still leave Sam to do all the swish things like putting effects on and making it look pretty and putting that thing on the end where you had the links and I don't know the name of it. So this time I'm going to do a lot more of that myself. I haven't discussed with Sam yet whether he wants to return as well, but I would, and so I've got to take that pressure on myself. Like, if I've decided to make a return, it's up to me to do all that stuff. So if Sam wants to join in at all or just join in on a semi-committed basis, I will do the rest of the time. And at the back of my head I'm thinking I'll do a video once a fortnight, so I don't have a lot of pressure on myself to do these videos, but I still do have them if I want. And I mean, I can put up more videos if I want to, but there's no pressure to if it's just once a fortnight. This means I can also still run my blog, because I do enjoy doing that, but I want to do this as well. So I'm thinking the two things will be separate. My blog will be for doing more coherent discussions, because you may notice now I babble. And it will also just be for reviews, because I suppose that's what a book blog's for, talking about the books you read. And this will obviously do the same, but I'm thinking it'll be, like I said, more babbly. I'll do more wrap-ups and tags and things, and also in time I'm hoping to do reading vlogs because they just worked for me, so yeah. If Sam wants to join in, that means then if I'm doing them once a fortnight just for myself, that if he wants to join in on his own, or we want to do videos together when we are together every other week, we can film them and then put them in that gap, or put them in at another time. And we can do tags between us, or we could read 2 books that are the same in the month, so we could both read, I don't know, Nevernight. Both read Nevernight and we'll discuss it and discuss our thoughts. It'll be interesting if we both like it, but I think it'll be more interesting if one of us does and one of us doesn't, but we've got quite similar tastes, so I don't know how that'll work out. Another reason I have for returning is I am still applying for jobs in publishing and I'm not having loads of success. I mean, I wouldn't still be applying if I was being successful. I've got my book blog to talk about, but I feel like a lot of people have those at the moment, so it doesn't necessarily make me stand out too much. So I think fewer people have BookTube channels, but also everyone who has a BookTube channel that I follow, I'm getting FOMO. Like, you're doing so many fun things and I just want to join in. But back to interviews. I think BookTubers put so much effort into every video they produce. They put all this work into creating it and filming it and editing and just even coming up with ideas for videos, and I'd love to be able to talk about that in respect to me. So yeah, that's, I suppose, sort of a selfish reason, but you know, I guess that's what you gotta do. But yeah, it's honestly mainly FOMO. I feel like I'm seeing all these videos, and whilst I'm being quite bad at catching up on watching them, I'd like to correct that and then join in myself. So yeah. Now I will actually go on to what I'm here for, what is in the title. I apologise if the lighting's changed. Now it's November, the weather's pants, so what can you do? I've turned the light on, is what I've done, but that may change the lighting. Anyway, in October I read a total of 7 books and 2,738 pages. Recently I've read like 10 books a month, which to me is insane, because up until about 6 months ago I couldn't read 1 book a month that wasn't on my university syllabus, and even then I didn't really read all those books, I just read the first 100 pages. But anyway, yes, I will actually get on with the wrap up. The first book I read in October was God's Grave by J. Kristoff. This is the second book in the Nevernight series, which follows a girl called Mia Corvair, who is trying to avenge the death of her parents. And in the Nevernight she goes to an assassin school, and in God's Grave she is an assassin, but is going to go and do other things than be an assassin. Like, she's going to go and be an assassin as a gladiator. So yeah, is that a summary? I don't really know. It's a summary we're going to go with. But I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed it more than Nevernight in some ways and kind of less in others. Like, I sort of liked the actual story less, but I preferred the book as a whole more. And that's because I think I enjoyed the characters in this one more than I did in Nevernight. I really enjoyed Ash. Ash may be my favourite character, and yeah, so she was in this more, so I was obviously quite pleased with that. And yeah, I think whilst these books aren't YA, I think we kind of forget that Mia is a young adult. She's 16, 17, and so the whole book is based around her going and killing people, which isn't your typical 17-year-old thing. But in this one we kind of explore her still being a teen, like getting to explore her sexual identity, and I think that was just really well done, and that's honestly probably my favourite bit about it. The romance in this I didn't hate, and I do hate most romances. I also preferred the footnotes in this one. In Nevernight, I mean, in the Nevernight series as a whole, I feel like the footnotes are very hit and miss. I prefer them in this because they felt like they were actually adding to the story. Like, if something was happening, it would explain like the reference rather than just being a snarky remark. But yeah, and then the ending was just insane, and I was just really pleased to be able to immediately go on to this one, which I also read in October. So yeah, the next three books I read at the same time, but this is the next one I finished. But yes, next I read Dark Dawn by J. Kristoff, which is the third book in the Nevernight series, and it just carries on as Mia tries to kill everyone and find out more about who she is, because while she's got to find out more about her sexuality, in this she gets to find out more about her like abilities, her darking abilities. And yeah, that was really interesting. It answered a lot of questions that the previous two had opened up, not necessarily left unanswered, but just they never tried to answer them before. So this had a lot of questions to answer, and I think it did it quite well. It was constantly intense, so like stuff was always happening, but I suppose that's gonna happen in a final book in a series. It was a really good conclusion to the series, I thought. Didn't like the footnotes in this one. They went back to, I thought, more of what the first one was like, where it was kind of snarky remarks and things, but maybe that was just because I wanted the story to go on, but I didn't enjoy the world building in it as much. So world building's wrong, but like the world in this series is like completely different. There are 3 suns, and it's like light all the time, and it's called True Dark, and so it's not night, it's True Dark, so it's different. So they do need world building, but yeah, I was kind of more interested in just reading the story than reading the footnotes this time. So again, just personal preference. But this next bit is kind of spoilery, so if you haven't read, I suppose, the end of God's Grave, I will let you know when you should skip to. But obviously at the end of God's Grave, Trick comes back, and I have said that Ash is my favourite character, so whilst I wasn't disappointed to see Trick come back, I was disappointed in Trick's character when he came back. I do not have a lot of hope of this video working because I do not have enough memory, and that's why I have moved. I can't remember where I was. Yeah, anyway, Trick came back and he was just so obsessed with telling Mia that he loved her when she was quite clearly quite happy with Ash, and settled, and all he wanted to do was tell her. And I understand. Ash stabbed him and he died. And last time he saw Mia, she was quite obsessed with him. So I get that he's upset, but move on, guy. Yeah, I prefer Ash. And so, yeah. I just didn't hate it, but I didn't like Trick as much. So, but anyway, I thought it was a good conclusion to the series. Chapter 32 and chapter 35 broke my heart. And yeah, I rated this one 4.5, this one 5, and Nevernight 4, but I didn't read this one. So yeah, that is the first 2 books. The next book I read was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and it's one of those books that's been on my radar for ages but I've only owned recently, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well written, I thought it was really rich, it was beautiful, like all the characters were amazing, the settings were amazing. It covered like a really long, I mean it's not a really long time, it covered about 30 years, but I think it did it really well. Like it kind of moved from different characters in different places, which it sort of needed to do because there was a lot to cover, like I said. So yeah, I thought that was really well done. It was like a very beautiful book, like not just well written, but you could imagine it being beautiful. And also the magic in this was just incredible. Like it wasn't just the people disappearing and people surviving forever, it was things like a whole garden made of ice or a wishing tree with candles. And my favourite was, I've mentioned this like so many times now, but my favourite was the idea that there was a tent filled with jars and each jar had a story in it, and I love that. I love the idea that we could have 4 copies of our favourite book and a jar in the middle, and if you didn't want to pick up the book and read it, you could just like open the jar and smell it and you're like, it's like being at home amongst all the blood in Nevernight. How relaxing. But yeah, I really enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. The rest of the books I don't physically have. I made the mistake yesterday of taking them all back to the library. Like Dark Dawn is a library book, but I didn't take it back for some reason. I think mainly because I knew I was going to be filming this and I gave my copy to Sam. But anyway, so yeah, I stupidly took the rest of my books back. But the next book I have actually isn't from the library. It is, I'm going to put it up there so I'm going to move. The next book I have is Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I got this on NetGalley, so I had it on the Kindle, which is why I don't have it, so here it is. And I didn't like this one. I thought I would because it was kind of been, it was said that it was going to be like a female version of Supernatural, and the like main character was going to be this badass female monster slayer and she was going to kick all the monsters' butts, and while she did do that, I didn't think that was the main part of the story. I thought the whole monster slaying, kicking butt thing was overshadowed by a romance, because always. Anyway, but I'll start with the positives because I hated the romance. I think the world building in the book was really rich. I think the characters weren't great. I think the fact that there were gods in it was really well justified. It's based in a post-apocalyptic America where, it's not post-apocalyptic, what's it called? Dystopian America, where floods and climate change has ruined the world, and it's based around like a Native American group of people where gods exist and things, and I think that was really well done, its own voices, so that was good. But the romance, because that's all I can honestly remember from this book, was the fact I hated the romance, because she's got, before the book started, the main character Maggie had a male mentor and then he disappeared, and for half the book she's pining about the fact that he's disappeared and she's upset and she's not quite sure whether she liked him or not, like liked him. And then when she's got over him, she's thinking about her new partner, who is also male, who is also quite pretty, but like the mentor was pretty in a handsome, rugged, manly, macho kind of goddish way because he's a god, and this new one's in a new soft, gentle, kind, pretty kind of way. And so once she's moved on from one guy, she's now pining over the next and she's trying to do everything to please them, and I just didn't love it. I think the monster slaying, fierce female bit was overpowered by wanting to be in a relationship, and yeah, I just didn't love it. And also the end was really quick, which I didn't hate because I wanted it to finish, but yeah. Oh, I need to move my leg's gone now. How do you, I was going to say, how does everyone do this, but I suppose not everyone sits on the floor, but I'm sitting on the floor in my sister's room because it's the only plain background. I don't have a bookshelf to sit in front of with good light. I don't have a bookshelf to sit in front of, and the light in my room, the best light in front of the window, which is here in my sister's room, is in front of my wardrobe, which is mirrored, so I can't really do that. So anyway, I'm still in my sister's room at the moment. It's the postman that made me jump. The next book I read was The Furies by Katie Lowe, and I did get that one out from the library as well. And I got it because yesterday was Halloween, and so I wanted to read like some witchy, magical, monstery books, and I think most of them are. In fact, I think almost all of these books on my TBR are, like, depending on how you look at them. So yes, I read The Furies, and it's about a group of secondary school girls, or like sixth form girls in Britain, who all become, well, three of them are friends already, but a new girl joins, and they're obsessed with witches and the Furies, given by the title, and all females in history. And one of them dies at the end, but you see about it in the start, and then someone else dies at other points. Lots of people die. They do lots of rituals and stabbing and things, and they're just, I guess, not nice people. But I think it's written pretty well, because whilst they're not nice people, and a lot of the time I was shouting at them not to do things, like, there was a little part of me that was like, I'd quite like to do this, actually. Not the killing and the stabbing, but like, they go to, like I said, witchy lessons where they learn about all these powerful, incredible women throughout history that have been persecuted by men. So I just would really like to have been part of that. So I think that was really well written, like that obsession and intensity. Yeah, it was kind of like scary and realistic, and I could totally see how like a young girl could get sucked into it. It was also like the mystery was kept up throughout, like you didn't know what was going to happen or who it was going to happen to until right at the end, and even then you weren't quite sure. It wasn't quite 100% solved. So yeah, that was well done. I gave it 3.5 stars. Today, yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you, I gave Trail of Lightning 2 stars. I really didn't like it. I was considering DNFing it for most of it, but I haven't yet DNF'd a book, so it's kind of like I need to DNF the first book so then I can be like, just don't like it from page 10, goodbye book. The next book I read was The Deathless Girls by Kieran Millward Hargrave, and it's a retelling, I think, of The Brides of Dracula, and I haven't read that, so I didn't really know what that was about, but I assumed it was about vampires. And this is based in Romania with a travelling community, and it gets broken up at the start of the book, and 2 twins get taken to a castle to be servers, well, to be slaves, and they happen to be servers, and one of them falls in love, and romance. Have you noticed a theme in this video? Despite the fact that I am with Sam, I apparently do not like romance, and in this one I felt so conflicted about the romance. I promise I will stop talking about romance at some point. I'm going to make a video not about romance where I refuse to talk about it or something. But anyway, in this I felt so conflicted by the romance because I wanted to like it, which was stupid, but I wanted to like it because it was LGBT+, and so there's not enough of those stories, so I felt like I should like it. But the way the romance was felt like if it was straight I'd hate it. They just looked at each other across the room, had maybe 2 conversations, and then they were intensely in love. They loved each other more than anyone else in the world. They just had this connection, and I just, no, like, this came out of nowhere. And yeah, if it was straight I would have hated it, and so I just felt like I shouldn't love it. I don't think it was bad, but it just wasn't as amazing as I thought it should be. Or not amazing, it wasn't as justified, I suppose, as I thought it should be. There were bits about the Deathless Girls which I really liked, and others that just kind of felt half-hearted. It almost felt like this book needed 100 more pages, because whilst it did do everything it needed in these pages, the 300 pages it did have, it also sort of felt like it was rushed. Like, there was nothing really about the vampires. They were kind of there in the last 100 or so pages, but not really there. Like, they were in the background, but we didn't really see anything about them. And then it just finished, and I was like... So I rated the Deathless Girls 3 stars. The final book I read in October was The Testament of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. I'm going to say what I gave it now because I will forget. So I gave it 3 stars. It is the sequel to The Gospel of Loki, which was the September/October book of the month for the Myth Take Reads book club. And The Gospel of Loki is told by Loki, is about Ragnarok, which is the fall of like Asgard, and this is the sequel where they haven't completely fallen, they've like just mostly fallen, and a bit of them exist still, so they're gonna go into the human world and try and find their way back. And they go into like our world, so the 21st century, and they go into a game called Asgard and make their way out into the human world from there. And so I didn't hate it, I just didn't love it as much as the first one. It was kind of just a bit more, the idea of it, or the concept of it, was just a bit weird, and I suppose it would work for some people. I just didn't love it. It was a bit far-fetched, and I just felt like we didn't quite get to see everything. Again, it was quite short, and stuff just happened, and yeah. Loki's plans are always quite twisted and weird, and so I didn't always understand them, and he's got a weird head, so being in it is weird in itself, but then he was actually inside someone else's head. So we were having like 2 sets of thoughts at the same time, but like about the same thing, and then they were having conversations with each other, and it was just a bit twisted. And also it was kind of less about Norse mythology and more about humans, and I feel like if we got to read more about how the humans saw Norse gods, because it's just kind of like we see them as characters in a game, and I honestly, just because it would have been interesting to see how they looked at them like 200 years afterwards. We got a bit of a glimpse into a guy who studied the Norse gods and the fall of Asgard and things, and I feel like that just could have been really interesting, but we didn't get loads of that, and the end was... I don't know if they're leaving it open for another one or just being like, yeah, Loki's still alive and so is everyone else, but everyone else isn't quite alive, and you don't really know because, like I said, his plans are twisted and I just didn't quite follow. But yeah, I also started reading The Song Rising, but I got to about 60% last night, so I didn't quite finish it, so that will be probably the first book in November I finish. So yeah, that is my wrap up for October. I don't know how disjointed it will be with my camera, but here we go. Yeah, so hopefully I will return to BookTube and stay here at least partly, and I hope you enjoyed this. So if you did and you're not already, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and just let me know what books you read this month and enjoyed, or if you have read any of these or are looking forward to. I can be found on Twitter at Bryony, or Instagram at The Indecisive Readers. I haven't done this in a while and I forgot. On WordPress we are also The Indecisive Readers, but I will just link everything down below. I'll also link Sam's because he may reply to you if you're lucky. But anyway, I will see you in the next video.